Guys, hey, it's your old pal Kevin Schmidt, physical therapist, bike fitter out here in Portland, Oregon with Pedal PT. Time for another installment of bike fit tips and ways to keep you guys happy, healthy, pain-free, and riding as much as you want without pain. So that's kind of our goal here. If there is one question I tend to get more than any, especially at the start of the cycling season, right now it is February, people are getting ready to start riding, getting ready to put in a lot more miles for the summer. There's one question I get asked the most. It has to do with saddle sores and it has to do with saddle pain. So what I want to do is I want to kind of just take a broad overview. We can really deep dive into a lot of these topics specifically, but I want to kind of give you a generalized overview. If you yourself are having some saddle issues, if a friend of you is having some saddle issues, let's talk about kind of the theories or different ways that you should probably start checking your BikeFit, different things with saddles. I guess the overarching point on this is a good, well-qualified, excellent bike fitter should be able to help you with all these issues related to saddle sores. So there are many components about bike fit that do lead to saddle sores that we probably won't get into in this video, but I want to kind of give an overall kind of viewpoint or certain tips or certain things that you should definitely look for on your own bike, okay? So when we refer to saddle sores, it doesn't have to necessarily be a sore, but it just has to be discomfort in the saddle area. That could be chafing, that could be an actual sore that gets started, that could be kind of wearing away of the skin, that could be like a blister, that could be a wide variety. But most of the time when we are getting saddle pain, saddle issues, it ultimately comes down into friction. The whole point of it is when we are pedaling, we are sitting on a very small saddle, our legs are pumping up and down, and so inevitably the goal is when we are sitting on that saddle is we don't want our hips rocking and moving around, and we want to avoid friction at all costs. With the right position of the saddle, we should be able to sit on that saddle, be able to relax our arms comfortably, put our hands on the handlebars, pedal, and not feel like we're sliding around. That is the number one tip. If you are on the saddle and you feel yourself sliding either forward, backwards, or side to side off that saddle, that is a key factor that you need to address because that is probably what's causing your saddle sore. So with that said, the first thing to look for is always saddle height, okay? Most likely when we see people with saddle pain and that is their primary concern, oftentimes saddle is too high, okay? Now, oftentimes people want to blame the saddle first and foremost. I think the key is first you have to make sure that your saddle height is correct. I think I've talked about this in other videos before, but if your saddle's too high, you could be on the most perfect saddle ever made for your behind and it would still cause pain. Why? Because when we pedal at the bottom of that pedal stroke, if we are reaching too far, it will cause us to slide off the side of that saddle. Sometimes it's just on one side, sometimes it will be both sides. So the higher you are, the more you're gonna slide in both directions. Oftentimes, if you're just a little bit high, it might just be one side of your hip slides off a little bit. With each one of those bottom strokes, usually is when we're gonna start rubbing on that saddle. You combine that with time, and then now we've got a great recipe, not only for saddle sores, but also sometimes lower back pain, hamstring pain, IT band pain also are very common from saddle being a little bit too high. How to remedy that? Well, I would start by if you're just feeling a very slight bit of rocking or if someone is riding behind you and sees that you're rocking a little bit, start out by dropping that saddle maybe 5 millimeters, maybe up to a centimeter, that's quite a bit, and then retest. The goal is from the back, you shouldn't see like your hips are sliding back and forth or you're sliding on that saddle at all. That's number one, okay? Number two is also looking at saddle tilt. Now, with saddles, of course, we can choose nose up and nose down, and that's controlled by the seat clamp down there, okay? And so ultimately, a lot of times people will put that level. That is kind of the goal. Level is kind of a theoretic though. Level means that I can ride on that saddle and I'm not sliding off it, especially forward. Even a saddle that's measured with like a bubble level that says this is 0, if you're still sliding forward off it, you have to slowly start to pick that nose up a teeny bit. Not much. The reason being is if the nose is slightly up, that kind of supports us, keeps us from sliding forward and allows us to keep our sitting bones back on the wider part of the saddle. Oftentimes, people have the saddle nose down. Therefore, it might be the right saddle for them, but what ends up happening is they will slide forward and then they're gonna start riding on this area of the saddle, not back on the wider part where that is. Well, we can see what that would do is go ahead and try riding on something skinny like that for a while, and that can definitely lead to some saddle pains, chafing, saddle sores, the whole key there. So the key is we got to stay on the saddle. If you feel like you're sliding forward, just a teeny bit of nose up can make a big difference. And in fact, if I think I had someone comment recently talking about the Brooks, the B17, the big leather saddles. When you look at the manufacturer, they tell you to actually set this up nose up. And why? Because when we sit on this, this will start to create a hammock effect as the leather breaks down and as you ride that. Usually takes about 200 to 400 miles. You know, combine some repetition, some butt sweat, it'll get that thing broken in really nice. It'll leave you 2 little divots for your sitting bones back there, key. So the idea is, Brooks, if we set that up level, most of the time people are sliding forward on it. So we have to kind of kick it up a little bit more so it allows the leather to deform to create that hammock effect, okay? Now, if the saddle's up too much, of course, then we start getting pressure in the front part of the pelvis as well. That might be a whole nother topic for conversation, but oftentimes some people tend to run their saddles too high, so they usually will start to feel that nose, so they will drop the nose to get the nose pressure off. The trouble is, what you've done now is you've just created more friction on that thing. So you're already too high, you felt the nose, so you get the nose out of the way, now we're sliding even more. So we've created all kinds of problems with that too. So tilt is number 2 to look at. So if it's too high, that'll cause it. If it's nose down, definitely we're getting friction. Or another way to check about saddle tilt would be is if you're pedaling and all of a sudden you have to constantly kind of hop your butt back onto the saddle. Like you'll pedal, oh, slide back. Pop, 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 slide back. I call that like the typewriter effect. A lot of this audience probably doesn't know what a typewriter is, but back in the old days, we used to type on a typewriter and that would go down and it would get to the end and then you had to kind of push it back to the start. You could continue typing and then the message would continue to go. Anyway, the whole point is you want to feel level on that saddle. So if you're constantly having to slide your body back, if you're constantly having to readjust on that saddle, something is off, and oftentimes it has to do with height, oftentimes tilt as well, okay? Number 3, saddle width, okay? How wide is the saddle in the backside as well? This one is a little tricky. There are little ways that we can kind of calculate or measure that, but oftentimes if people have said, well, I've made sure my saddle height is right, I've made sure my tilt is right, I'm still getting saddle pain. When in doubt, go wider with your saddle, okay? Usually if it's more of a road style handlebar and our saddle is here and our bars are a little bit lower, that usually sometimes means you will be able to tolerate a little bit thinner saddle. If the bars are higher than the saddle or much more upright like a Dutch bike, definitely a wider saddle. So the more upright we are on the bike, the wider the saddle we want to be. So if you're going to Copenhagen, if you're going to Amsterdam, you're gonna be riding one of those bikes, the saddle will be large because we're very vertical. It's like us just sitting, like standing. The more we lean forward, our sitting bones will taper in, so we're actually just getting a little bit narrower, hence why we're able to tolerate maybe a thinner saddle with more of a road position or a gravel position, okay? Now, lastly, this is always a huge kind of opening a can of worms, but we talk about chamois, which is the padding in the shorts. Definitely recommend trying that out. That is chamois that creates padding that spreads forces across the saddle. There are a variety of many different kinds of styles, thicknesses, different materials. So that is kind of one of those things that you kind of have to try it out. Talk with your friends, see what works well for them. But every company kind of makes a different style chamois, which is just called the padding in those kind of, Lycra or shorts, the cycling shorts as well. So definitely use that. Also, in addition to that, they have something called chamois cream. Chamois cream is essentially just a type of cream that you will typically put on, usually on the chamois itself, on your undercarriage. And what we're trying to do is create a friction-free surface. So a lot of times with chamois cream and with chamois, your BikeFit can be off a little bit more because it can tolerate a little bit of shimmying and rocking and friction on the saddle. So that's kind of the main things. The cream itself basically is just designed to protect the skin, create a little barrier. So if you're getting sliding versus rubbing on tissue, it just doesn't create quite that blister or that friction effect as well. So those would be kind of the main key pieces: saddle height, saddle tilt, how wide is your saddle, and number 3, start thinking about cycling shorts, chamois, and chamois cream. For the longest time, I used to ride with just a chamois and no chamois cream. as I've gotten older and as my tissues obviously are getting less quality, I don't know. Once you're kind of almost 50, things start kind of breaking down a little easier. So I have to start using chamois cream. Now once we wear chamois cream, no problem whatsoever. Excuse me. So those would be kind of your points to look at with saddle sores. It's never fun, but a lot of times there is a solution to that. If you're having saddle sores and you've had them forever and ever, sometimes you just have to take a break on cycling to allow that tissue to heal. Okay, so sometimes even with the perfect bike fit, if you've had symptoms and symptoms and symptoms, oftentimes you kind of got to give that tissue a break, maybe a week or two off the bike, let that tissue recover, then you can start to reintroduce it. Okay, while I'm thinking about this, another good point is sometimes if you wear the same shorts, the same chamois every time, get a different rotation so you're not using the same shorts, same chamois. You're kind of giving a little bit of variety so that tissue is not taking the direct forces in the same way each time when you're riding. So give those a try. Of course, I'm sure you guys probably have questions about this. So by all means, that's what the comments are for down there. So if you got questions about saddle sores, saddle pain, please reach out. I think I've done a few videos about saddles, but I figure we're starting up the season for riding. Let's get you guys going. So drop some comments. While you're thinking about those comments, also consider subscribing, click like. I think we're already over 800 subscribers, so that's awesome. Let's keep it going, guys. The goal is to get to 1,000, so let's do it. Otherwise, have a great day. Otherwise, again, Kevin Schmidt, physical therapist, bike fitter out here in Portland, Oregon with Pedal PT. Have a great day. We'll see you guys. Cheers.